Hey everybody, Mike Toy here, Bonsai Boise. This is one of my corkscrew willows. I call it the green corkscrew willow. I also have a yellow corkscrew willow that I've had for many years. This one I've had for about 1 year. Pretty overgrown, as you can see. There's a look at the trunk. So today I'm going to trim it up and I'm going to get rid of some of that dieback. So let's go back in time about a year, July of 2023. I found 3 of these on Marketplace, 2 of which unfortunately died over the winter. But this is a look at the starting state of this one that we're working on today. It's pretty rough looking. You have to really look hard to see the potential in it. Still has some good life, 3 live trunks or branches there, and a lot of dead ones. So I started by getting rid of the dead trunks, or a lot of it at least. Then I wanted to get it into some bonsai soil, so I did something you shouldn't do, which is I repotted it right in the middle of summer. Look at all those roots I got rid of. But I got to expose a lot of that trunk that was buried, so that's cool. It's got these 2 kind of antenna things going right now at this stage. Then fast forward to this past spring in April of 2024. And this one survived. You see a lot of new growth there. I was super excited because the other 2 died, and the other 2 were pretty much just as good of material as this one was. Here it is in May, so about a month later. So I wanted to attack these antenna branches here, one of which wasn't doing very good, the other of which was. I'm going to keep that as a cutting. And here it is, about a month later. There's that same cutting, rooted up, and it's still alive and kicking today. Willows root super easy from cuttings. So at this stage, this being in May, I just wanted to give it kind of a, fairly light trim. It didn't have a lot of growth on there, but I wanted to get the structure of this tree off to the right start. Then here it is about a month after that, in June. It responded really well. These willows, these corkscrew willows, and probably most willows, need a lot of sun and a lot of water. Emphasis on both of those. Then here it is as of the day I did the work, July 2nd. It had overgrown quite a bit since then, in just about a month and a half or almost 2 months. So I thought it was time to kind of dive in and get some work done on it. So that first branch that wasn't doing well, one of the antennas, that one died back. And then there's some stumps on there, nubs from other dieback branches. I really am excited about this tree and about its potential. I think the trunk is super cool looking. It's got good movement. It's got some, fissure in the bark and some, few battle scars and some character. So I'm really excited for this one. And I love corkscrew willows in general. They have a lot of character. They grow fast. They can have a tendency to die back, as we've seen on some of these branches. Willows in general do. They can sort of break your heart that way. They grow fast and have cool character, and then out of nowhere, half of it can just die back for whatever reason. Seemingly no reason, really. So you just kind of have to accept it for what it is going into it, that can happen, and it can just ruin your whole plan, and you might have to develop it some other way. So my strategy so far, since I don't really have much of a solid structural plan yet, is I'm kind of just rough pruning it just to get in there and get a better idea. It's hard to tell sometimes, when it's all fully overgrown. It's hard to get an idea of where to start or which way to go. It's kind of overwhelming. So do a little rough pruning, and I try not to, I would say, paint myself into a corner with anything. I don't prune a branch completely off until I'm absolutely sure that branch has to go. But it's starting to take shape now. I'm just sort of inching my way into it. My hope and my plan is that I can repot this next spring, and I think I'm going to put it in kind of it's not going to be a shallow pot. From what I've seen, willows don't do great in shallow pots. Maybe they can, but I kind of doubt it, because they just need so much water, and a shallow pot doesn't really hold much water, so they have almost no tolerance for drying out. So I'm going to put it in kind of a bowl type pot, something not super deep and big, but kind of deep and big. Something that just complements its size and its character. So I don't have one picked out yet, but that's sort of what I've got in my mind. I do want to get it out of this plastic training pot though, because it's just such a cool tree. I think it deserves something a little better, even while it's in development. So that's what I'm thinking for it for later. For now, still kind of inching my way in there, getting it down to shape. Once it's down to shape, I can make some better structural decisions. It's tempting on these willows too, sometimes to let them, they grow so fast. And so you turn your back on it and boom, you have this big full tree. And it can be tempting to just hedge prune it, which is where you're not really looking at the structure at all. You're just looking at the overall shape, and you're kind of cutting it down to that shape. But then you end up with really long, straight branches at certain spots, which you can probably see a few in there right now, which I'm going to attack. But I don't want long, straight branches on these. I just think that they deserve better. They can do a lot better. So in order to get movement in branches and avoid the long straight branches, you gotta trim them. Now I'm trying to get some of these stumps and nubs out of there, so I've got my little saw. It's not a, there you go, you can kind of see it there. It's not a big heavy saw, it's just something small and precise that I can kind of get in there and do some precise cutting. I'm a little nervous about it. I'm trying to do it so I don't cut into any live wood or live growth. Now I'm going right for it, so I'm nervous again, even just watching myself do it. But in reality, I was going very slow and cautiously. despite how fast that looks. And it actually worked really well. You can kind of see how it angles right in there. I'm just going to finish it off and kind of smooth it off too, so that it looks a little bit more natural and less abrupt. I think it turned out kind of well, actually. Now some of these bottom stumps, same thing, except this time I think I'm just going to try and chip away at it if I can. It's harder to get the saw in those angles down there. So I nibble away at it. That one also went pretty smooth. Starting to look a lot better already. If you think about how it started with all those dead branches all over, and it was just kind of raw material. Looking at it now, I definitely think it's starting to look a lot better. Now this last stump here. Again, I'm trying to avoid cutting into any live wood if I can avoid it. This one also went really well. Kind of suspiciously well. Usually I goof up and get clumsy at some point, but all three of those went really smooth, so knock on wood. And now I'm starting to develop a much better look for what I want to do with it. So now that I've got a better idea of that, I can take some liberties here on some of these other branches. Like, do I want it that tall? Do I want to bring the top of that down a little bit so that it continues to taper? Because you see how it tapers from the bottom part of the trunk is super thick, and then it gets thinner into that top branch, and that'll smooth out and look more natural with time as well. But that's what I got to decide. A couple of these branches, that's exactly what I decide. I just take them down even further. Here's a closer look at it. I really do love the trunk and the bark on this. It just has really cool character. It looks old and fissured, and it's got some scars to it. Yeah, I think it's going to look really good as it starts to develop more. I want to get it into a better pot, of course, but yeah, I think it's got a really good future ahead of it. I know I've been a little brutal with it in the 1 year I've had it so far, but it's been a good sport. And I know it looks a little scraggly and awkward right now, but I'll show you what happened shortly after this. That was kind of how I left it at the time. That was beginning of July. One last little twirl. And then about 3 weeks later or so, 3.5 weeks, look at that. Filled back out again, super well and healthy. in a full sun spot, and it gets lots of water. The two things willows love the most. You can already see that it's just in 3.5 weeks. I mean, it's a lot of growth for 3.5 weeks. That was at the end of July. And here it is, beginning of August, as of yesterday. So it's really grown out. And I'll probably just leave it alone at this point and just let it continue to grow and gain health. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on these two and any experience you've got. Love to hear it. And thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.